guys, this is Jeremy with iKillOrchids, and I haven't done an update on the greenhouse in a while, so I just wanted to kind of give you a little walkthrough. So it is January 16th at 11:25 in the morning. The sun is shifting a little bit. There is a shed to the south side of the building that, as you can see, it kind of shadows this. So we get first morning sunlight down on the far end of the greenhouse, and then as afternoon comes in, late morning and afternoon, we start getting sun from this side of the greenhouse. So here's just kind of my walkthrough. I've got still arbitrary things in here. I can't remember for the life of me what the heck this thing is called, but I will post it so you guys know. Obviously not an orchid. Richard was telling me he only got this thing to bloom like once in the last 20 years, and now it's doing great. So here we go. This is mostly my dendrobiums here. I've got Firewings is getting ready to start busting open. Looks like it's starting to bust open a little bit. Happy dendrobiums. Down here, I've got a Stanhopea or Stanhopa. I've heard it both ways. It bloomed last week and did just great. I mean, quite frankly, when I got the greenhouse, I thought it was on its way out, and it ended up blooming, and it's putting on new roots. So I don't know if you can see them down here. It's got some green tips on the roots. It's doing well. This guy bloomed earlier in the few weeks ago, a month or so ago. I've got a lot of new growth going on. You can see in here. Really excited about the way things are going. I mean, considering how bad off everything was, I know that a lot of people in their greenhouses are starting to get a lot more blooms. I am quite frankly just really happy with all of the new growth that's going on. I mean, there's very few places where like that, you know, new growth in the roots, new growth's coming up all over the place. We've got this little guy, he's starting to spike actually. That's a spike right here. This is a Galliopedilum. And you guys are gonna see this as I walk through the greenhouse. I've got some of these plants that are actually sitting in a little bit of water. The reason for that is we have had so much just cold lately, as well as like we'll have 2 or 3 days of sun and then 4 or 5 days of rain. And so because of that, the heater is running like constantly in here. And I've got a few plants that just really have become adapted to higher water levels. And over the summer, like several of my oncidiums, they were actually sitting in water. So like you can see, he's sitting in a little bit of water. This one's dried out. I haven't yet watered today. We're only at 62% humidity for right now. When I'm done watering, it'll look completely different in here. But so some of these guys are actually sitting in water because it's just really hard to keep the humidity and the water up in here the way that it needs to be with the heat running almost constantly right now. But you can also see I've got phals in here that are putting on spikes. I mean, I don't think there's a phal in here that's not spiking right now. Some of them are growing new off of old spikes. My bromeliads, my trusty little humidity holders here. A whole bunch of different guys in here. I think, let me show you this. This guy's been in bloom for almost a month now. There's 2 spikes up there that are fully in bloom. Looks like they're starting to fade, but tons of new growth. I mean, like there's the new growth. All of these guys, these Miltonias have new growth. Down here, I've got some Angrecums that you can see by their roots. They're going nuts. I thought this guy, he was covered in scale. He broke down into 5 different plants, and they're all doing really, really well right now. So here's a Dendrobium alexandrae with a big, beautiful new growth on it. A lot of my dendrobiums are putting on new growths right now. Not so much spikes, but growths. This guy desperately needs to be repotted, but he's got several new growths coming up. This is a no ID, and if I can get the camera on it, there it goes. There's a big old spike sticking up there. See it? Goes way the heck up there. There's actually a couple more. I don't know if you can pick them up on the video or not, but there's a couple more on the plant. It's greatly overgrown its pot. It needs to be taken care of, but it wasn't in distress in the fall, so I just let it go, and it is now spiking. So hopefully we'll get to, before long, see what it is and how it's doing. There's a couple more plants that I have in water trays for the water level. As you can see, they've got new growths on them as well. Everything is just doing really, really great. These are a lot of my little guys back here. Smaller pots, smaller plants. They get really high morning light and then a little bit of afternoon light. So there's mini cats in here, some little rescue guys. This guy is actually looking way, way better than he was before. I don't even know what he is, some sort of little cattleya. This guy's looking way better. He came to me in pretty rough shape. Cattleya maximas all are, if you guys have seen my previous videos, you know this was a big mess. It was covered in scale, but we've got new growth here. Obviously you can see the new growth coming up on that one. All the maximas have new growth on them. And then down here I have kind of an interesting little experiment going. This is a grouping of various plants. And before you scream at me for having a catasetum that is still being watered, it has never gone dormant. So I was told, this is my first catasetum, I was told when it goes dormant and the leaves start to fade and fall, that's when you stop watering it. It never has. Instead, it has put on a new growth. And down here, I'm guessing this is another new growth, maybe a spike, but I'm guessing it's a growth. So it has just continued to grow, so I'm just continuing to water and fertilize it. But these guys are all in a tray because they're in a position in the greenhouse that gets extremely dry. So when I water, I always leave about a 1/4 inch of water in here, and literally the next day it's absolutely gone. These guys that are in sphagnum, they have enjoyed staying wet and warm during the winter. I'm sure that will change a little bit more as we move into the summer, but that's where they are right now. So again, new growth everywhere, new growth. Beautiful new growths. Everything is just looking fabulous. And you can see across the way all the Phalaenopsis spikes. There's Keiki. See all the spikes? It's like an eel garden. If you guys know anything about scuba diving or anything, there's something called garden eels, and they come up out of the sand. They're just little stringy eels, and they live in groups. This reminds me of an eel garden. So anyway, and there's one that's actually in bloom. It bloomed off of an old spike. It just grew another 6 inches out the top and put on 5 or 6 more buds that are now starting to open. So this guy is fading, but he was really cool. He's the albiform. Here's one in pretty good shape. Epidendrum, I'm trying to remember, Propii or something like that. I don't remember it right off the top of my head, and I don't have his label on him because it's actually over in my orchid book on the potting bench. But he's albiform, so he's really cool. About a month ago, he was literally covered in these little bitty blooms. He was really cool. So Leptodes, like all kinds of stuff in here. There's some new growth coming up on this dendrobium, no ID. But I want to take you to the other side of the greenhouse. Here's kind of my little workbench space. And over here, you can see there's a little bit more sun coming in right now. Some epidendrums, vandas, different things up here. Vandas growing out of the bromeliads. This is a maxillary tenifolia, I believe. We're gonna wait and see how he blooms out and make sure, but he was covered in scale, so he's kind of on his own right now. These are just kind of miscellaneous plants over here that are wintering and we're not sure what to do with yet, and so they just kind of are hanging out in this area. Let's see what else. More little Stanhopias here, little babies. Vandas. Big mess, big vandas, and then there's this guy. I'm still hoping that he's gonna start spiking. I'm seeing a little bit of new growth on him, and he's just as overgrown as can be, but I don't see any, or I haven't noticed any evidence of spikes in the last couple years. So I don't know if or what he's gonna do. If I don't see something before too long, I'm gonna go ahead and dive in and divide him into a couple smaller plants. But for right now, I mean, he's happy and growing. He's just not blooming. So I'm not sure what's going on there. This is a frag that when I first got the greenhouse, it had all of this leaf damage going on, and we had, you know, fungal issues, just a mess. And I treated him and moved him around, found a happy place for him. And now, as you can see, he's got really beautiful leaves coming up, happy, healthy, all kinds of new growth down in there. So he's on his way back to looking good. This is my bougainvillea and some other guys that are just hanging out in here. Stanhope that I still need to get out of his basket and repotted. Reed stem epidendrum that is putting on some new growth this spring, looking good. Up there I have, that's a walking iris that actually I noticed this morning is starting to put on buds. I don't know if you can see them in the video right there. It's got about 5 or 6 of them. And then my Tropicana hibiscus, which you can see is actually blooming. So this is the nursery area. That is a chunk of a cymbidium that I didn't know if it would make it or not. It's actually hanging in there a lot better than I thought it would. No ID little Cattleya that's has put on a second new growth on it. So the whole thing is, guys, this has just been really exciting for me. New growth, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Like I said, you're kind of looking at my nursery section right now. So these guys are rough area. Needing some help. We've got a bird of paradise down here. Cymbidiums, like all kinds of stuff. And now we're on the other side where the phals are. But anyways, I haven't given you guys an update in a long time, so I wanted you to see kind of how spring is starting to shape up in here. Give you an idea of what's going on. I have a list of things that people have been asking for as far as some demonstrations. How have I gotten rid of the scale? What various things have I found with the greenhouse? What's going on? So I'm gonna start hitting a couple more videos in here for you, but I hope you have enjoyed this little walk through the greenhouse. I will give you definitely more updates as we get more things into bloom. Quickly, I didn't show you. Over there on the far side, that big Brassavola cordata over there, that was the one that you may have seen on Twitter. I posted this week. It won the 2nd place, the blue ribbon, at the Orchid Society meeting. So that was kind of fun and exciting. So anyways, thanks guys for hanging out with me. I know it's been a while, but I would love to hear your comments and to hear what's going on with you guys and what's blooming in your homes, your greenhouses, your patios, and your windowsills. Let me know what's going on. So take care. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.